And for those of you that are joining me this morning, um, this recording is called One Law, Part 4. Should Israel behave as the nations that surround it? Meaning, should we, as Judah and Israelites, living wherever we're dispersed in the world, should we be living and, taking on the traditions and the heritage of those people that live around us? And I know most people aren't absolutely awake yet, or don't see anything wrong with it, but it actually has been one of the reasons why, throughout the millennia, as our leadership has chosen to follow the traditions of man outside of law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah, it has led us into many captivities. It has led to the slaughter of our people worldwide. And for those of us that live in North America or the United States, we see an increase, an uptick um, in the disparaging and the murdering, the continued oppression of our people. And you have to ask yourself, at least I ask myself, why is this? So the beginning of last year, I first, Yah exposed additional truth to me. And as he did that, I came to understand that, we that are dispersed throughout the four corners of the world are actually the tribe of Judah, from the nation of Israel. So, and so I started, searching out other Israelites. I started searching out, trying to find online Israelite communities, because in my local area here, there aren't any communities that I would want to follow, that I would want to sit among those assemblies. So I was so blessed by Yah to have found online community that we have Shabbat service every Saturday morning, and it is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to put the link below, so those of you that are awakening and want some really good fellowship in online Hebrew Israelite community, you can find that community. And it's nothing like, these camps that you see out on the street corners, or whatever, that are bashing women, that are bashing men. They're just bashing our people, and they're becoming a stumbling block to the awakening. So but I just want to put that out there first, and we're going to get right into the lesson. We're going to start in Deuteronomy chapter 18, and we're going to do verses 9 through 15. And again, this is One Law, Part 4. Should Israel behave as the nations that surround it? And it reads, When thou art come into the land which Yah thy God, thy Elohim rather, giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. So that means, taking on the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, celebrating their holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, all these things that don't represent any kind of heritage or traditions that would favor our people, or even the people that were the natives that were in this land before we even came here. So, if you do your history, if you do your research into Thanksgiving and the 4th of July and Christmas and all those things, you'll find out those are pagan holidays. Those are pagan holidays that Israelites have been keeping since we came to this continent. And they're a direct opposition to what high holy days we should be keeping, like Pesach and Feast of Tabernacles, those kind of things. So I'll just keep going. Verse 10, There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. Verse 11, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. How many times have you been in your neighborhood, or you've been in the town that you live in, that you'll drive down the street and you'll look to your right or to your left or straight ahead or whatever it's at, right? And you'll see a store with a big palm, in the window, palm readers, or remember Dionne Warwick was doing there was some kind of about 20 years or so, there was some kind of call-in thing to Dionne Warwick. I think it was Dionne Warwick that actually, the Psychic Network is what it was called. All these things we're supposed to avoid. We're supposed to avoid, whether you're a Scorpio or an Aquarius, zodiac signs, all these things that are the the way that the heathen lives, the Gentile, the non-Israelite lives. They think these things are normal. And we're told in the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah, Most High Yah, that we're not supposed to participate in these things. Okay? I'll keep going. Verse 12, for all that do these things are an abomination unto Yah, and because of these abominations, Yah, thy Elohim, doth drive them out before thee. So you wonder why you look around on the news and you see the state that our people are in. It is because we are a disobedient nation. Not just, the tribe of Judah, but all the other 11 tribes as well. The nation, the northern and southern kingdoms, all the tribes, Israelites, we are a disobedient people. And we find ourselves out of our homeland, out of our promised land, specifically because we have been disobedient to the Most High Yah. We don't keep the Shabbat, the Sabbath. We don't do anything that we're supposed to do. We're just a disobedient, stiff-necked people. I'll keep going. Verse 13. Thou shalt be perfect with Yah, thy Elohim, which means we should be complete. We should be whole, sound, innocent, unimpaired, meaning that if you picture yourself in your most calm state, okay, and you are right mind and body, and you're keeping the Shabbat, you're keeping the laws, you're living a way that's pleasing unto the Most High Yah, right? And the world should be passing around you at 150 miles an hour, and you should be calm. You should be meditating in His Word. You should be keeping the Shabbat. You should be fellowshipping with other Hebrew Israelites. It doesn't matter if it's online. A lot of us are going to awaken and we're going to find ourselves alone. We're going to come out of Christendom, which is the Christian churches, Baptist, Protestant, Methodist, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist. We're going to come out of these places and we're going to find ourselves alone, okay? And we have to seek out the Hebrew Israelite communities that are online. You can go on internet, you can go on YouTube, and you can find the Israelite community to fellowship with on Shabbat. And there are some beautiful, couples that are leading Shabbat services online that are not only attending to our souls, but also trying to inspire us as a community to come together and just be who God intended us to be as a nation of people. So they're out there, and I'm going to put a link below to one community that I fellowship with, and that I think Yah has sent this, has put this mantle upon this couple, and they are just doing, I think, a fantastic job. I'm going to keep going. Verse 14. For these nations when thou shalt possess, hearken unto observers of times and unto diviners. But as for thee, the Yah thy Elohim have not suffered thee to do so. He does not want us taking on the characteristics, the traditions, the unsound judgments of the nations we find ourselves living above. The expectation for us as a nation has not ceased to exist because we were dispersed. We were dispersed throughout the world, the globe, because of our disobedience. So it doesn't make sense for us to awaken, okay, and to continue to do the same things we were doing before we were awakened, before we came into the knowledge of who we are as a people, that you are from the tribe of Judah, or you're from the tribe of Naphtali, or you're from, whichever tribe you find yourself from dispersed, you are an Israelite, a Hebrew Israelite. And while we're dispersed and we're in a downtrodden state, no matter where we are. I mean, you have little bits of people that are successful, that have made a life, a successful life, a comfortable life wherever they've been dispersed. But we are still in our land of our captivity. We are not back in Israel. We're not back in our promised land yet. So, so until then, we have to prove to Yah, the Most High Yah, that we are obedient people, that we love Him, and if He says in His Word, if you love Me, you will keep My commandments. Okay, so we're going to keep going. The Lord thy God, or Yah thy Elohim, will raise up thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brother, like unto me. Unto him shall ye hearken. That's Yeshua HaMashiach. That's the, as some people say, Jesus Christ, or JC, or Christ and the Messiah. That's who that is. That He did raise Him up. He did come. The deliverer did come for our people. So I'm going to continue on. Because of disobedience of Yah, our disobedience to Yah's law, statutes, and commandments, we find ourselves outside our land, Israel. For those of us that are in the tribe of Judah, we are dispersed throughout the four corners of the world, as is said. We would, and some people that don't know, I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but how were we dispersed? We were dispersed from the west coast of Africa, the continent of Africa, through the transatlantic slave trade. That's how we were dispersed. And so my ancestors were slaves here in North America. But there was a route that they went through, okay, before they got here, for those that survived the Middle Passage. So I'm going to keep reading. And then I'm going to hit Isaiah 11 and 12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nation, a banner or a signal or rallying point for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather those together, the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Again, that's specifically for the tribe of Judah, which we find ourselves dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth. So we have people in Korea. There are black Koreans. I saw a video on YouTube the other day that there are black Koreans. These are black people that have been in that country for a long time, and they speak Korean fluently. That's who they are. So our people are on every continent on this earth, and some of us have been. Some of the blood of our people have been mingled with the natives, and as some say, or use the term whited out. There's another term for it, but I'm not going to use that term here. But there are still original black descendants of slaves that are on these continents still. So we're not all we haven't all mixed. Look at me, you can see that my my family didn't mix. They didn't go outside to other nations and mix with them and dilute our gene set. So we're still black and it's Hebrew Israelite, and we're dispersed throughout the world. Even if we speak a different tongue or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we are black, and we have our woolly hair and our melanin, skin, just really beautiful people. So I'm going to keep going. Okay, so it says we will be regathered according to prophecy, as I just read to you. But let us go back to the disbursement that birthed out the transatlantic slave trade. Why? As throughout the lineage of our people, both northern and southern kingdoms, the keepings of Yah's laws, statutes, and commandments have always been the condition of our covenant with our Elohim. He has given our people a way to live that is pleasing to him, that sets us apart from the people and nations that surround us. He chose us. Okay? Yahuwah has a plan to preserve our nation forever and give us the blessings he has for us. Listen and read Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 14 of this chapter. It tells us of the blessings that will result if we as a nation keep and remain obedient. So that means, as a nation, each nation has leadership. And so, for instance, this nation of North America, we have the United States President, we have the Congress. These are our leaders. We have in each state we have governors, and we have all these, this tiered leadership. Okay, and they make the decisions for this nation. Okay, and as such, if the individual people within those nations don't rise up and go against and prevent them from making decisions that affect us all, whether it be through voting system, some sort of system in place to help you to be a part of the decision making process. But for the most part, our leadership is, that wherever nation you're in, the leadership makes the decisions. They may be elected officials, but really they have their own agenda, and they're really going to do what they want to do, which is whatever their party or policy is, right? So really the individual, we have an illusion of having some kind of power, but we really don't. Okay, so that's number one. And so was the same for our kings, our leaders. If you look in the book of Kings, you look throughout scripture, you'll find that Israel's leadership, very few of them actually, did right in the sight of Yah. And as a result, a nation suffered. So we find ourselves in this. And I'm not taking away from the fact that as an individual, that during those reigns, those kingdoms of Israel's kingdom and the leadership, right? That individual people did not, commit adultery, commit murder, but I think judgment was passed on us as a nation, and so there was an established leadership that we demanded to have. We wanted a go-between. I'm not talking about Messiah, but I'm talking about in the scripture where we looked around us like the other nations, and they had kings, or they had prime ministers or whatever, and we wanted that too. And scripture tells you that we wanted that, so He gave us a king. And so what did the leadership? He told us what the leadership would do. They would take the best of our people. They would take the best of our land, and then we would be without. We wouldn't have all of our inheritance because we wanted leadership. We wanted that, that structure in place. But back to my point is that down to the very family unit of where leadership is, and it permeates up through the nation. It permeates up through the kingdom. It starts at the home. It starts with the man being the leader, the husband, the wife, and the children. There's a plan in place. There's a system in place on how things are supposed to run. And so as a nation, our leadership, sinned against God and didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. You can read that in scripture. I'm not going to sit up and tell you all that. You can, read and study for yourself. But these are the things that happened to us as a nation. And as a result of it, we find ourselves in this last captivity. But back to the promises that were made. If you look at Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 through 14, it specifically lays out the blessings that we would incur should we be obedient. I'll start off. I'm going to read these 15 verses because I think it's important that this word go forth. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So I'm going to try to read it, without looking too down too much. So I'm going to try to move the paper and hopefully you won't see it. Okay, so Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14 reads as follows. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yah thy Elohim will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. You don't see that now. You don't see Israel on top as a nation. You just don't. Matter of fact, we're so on the bottom. We have Gentiles living on our land right now. That's what we are right now, people. Gentiles are living on our land right now. Israel. So that's a huge, flag that we aren't obedient people. So let me go on. Verse 2. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee if thou shalt hearken to the voice of Yah thy Elohim. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. You can look on the news today and see that. Go out there and look at those YouTube videos, and you will see that we're not blessed in the field or in the city. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. We don't have sheep. We don't have cattle. We don't have fruit vineyards. We don't own land. Our sons and our daughters are like wild. I don't even know what to call them. I'm not going to generalize and say yours or mine, but you know exactly what I'm saying, what's happening in our community, whether it be through sexual promiscuity, or it be through drugs, or it be through gangs or whatever. And I know that other nations are experiencing the same thing, but we're talking about Israel here, okay? So that's what's happening in our communities. And blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. We don't even own a store for the most part. We don't even patron our own black businesses, and for various reasons, but we're not going to go into that. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Now, I know a whole lot of people in my family that, although they're surviving, they don't consider themselves as blessed in the way that scripture is talking about. Okay, verse 6. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee seven ways. Now we know our enemies. We're surrounded by enemies in this country, in North America. We've been in this country as slaves, and our enemies have been the slave masters, and their descendants are still over us, and they kill us at a drop of a dime. You be at a playground playing, the cop get out and kill your son, and that cop won't be, um, indicted for murder charges or anything. No, just nothing will happen. So we see that all the time. So I'm just saying that um, this would be the blessing. If we were obedient people, then this is what would be happening to our enemies. Um, our enemies, it says, our enemies will rise up against us and be smitten before our face. They shall come out against thee one way, and they shall flee before us seven ways. That's not happening. And the Lord and Yah shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses and in all that thou settest thine hand unto, and he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. We First off, we're not in our land. We're not in Israel, and we're here. And so, we are irking out a living. I don't care how much education we have. I don't care if we live in a big mansion or whatever. Um, it's it's a facade. I mean, you have it. It's real. You have a house. You have a job. But we are in the land of our captivity. And there is so much injustice and unrighteous judgments that's being passed against our people here that we can't, for the life of us, enjoy the fruits of our successes, as few and far between as they are. And we can honestly not enjoy it, because we can turn on the TV and we can find these horrible things that are happening to our people, and our people being in such a state of disarray, spiritually, physically, that, we're making these decisions because we're not living to the way that we're supposed to live. We're not living the way that Yah has instructed us to. Let me keep going here. Verse 9. Yah shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, and he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Yah thy Elohim, and walk in his ways, and all the people shall see that thou art called by the name of Yah, and they shall be afraid of thee. They look at us and they call us the N-word. They call us female dogs. They call us, gorillas. They call us everything but the child of the Most High Yah. We even do it to each other. So they're not afraid of people that we live amongst. I mean, wherever we go in the world, we are hated people. If you ever wondered why we're a hated people, now you know why. Okay? And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, in the fruit of thy ground, in the land which Yah sware unto thy fathers to give to thee. So we're not even back in our land. So Yah shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto the land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. How many times have we gone to these payday loan places, and they give you like 45% interest on whatever money you get from them? You go and you want to. How many people have, before you actually bought a house, you actually sat down and figured out how much money you would be paying back? You say you buy a $150,000 house, and if you get a 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, and by the time you have paid that for the value of that home, you have paid 3 to 4 times more. How many people are actually in their homes right now, and they're, what they call it, mortgages upside down, So this system that we live in is a system where you, in North America and other places too, where, this whole credit thing where you become a borrower, not a lender, but a borrower. And so, lots of our people are in debt. And or on some kind of public assistance, and if this system of things that they have worked here, if it failed tomorrow, we would be a lot of our women and men and children would be destitute. including myself. I'm not on the welfare or nothing like that, but I'm just saying if the system failed, which means that you didn't have a job to go to anymore, and that means you weren't going to get paid, you would be destitute. You wanted to, paychecks from on the streets or whatever. Even if you have, you know, 5 or 6 years of total salary saved or whatever, if the system in this country failed, that money's not going to be any good. So we're in a system that we're dependent on, that is failing all the time, and we've seen this happen. um, and it says in verse 12, Yah shall open up unto thee this good treasure, and the heaven to give the rain unto the land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. We borrow. That's all we do as a people, is borrow. We get a loan for this, we get a loan for that, because we live in a society where instant gratification is the order of the day. And so if you want that bling, or you want that car, or you want this, you'll go in debt to get it. That's what we do here in this captivity. This is the system. This is how we're living. And the question is, does Yah want us to live like the nations that we live amongst? Okay, verse 13. And the Lord shall make thee a head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If thou hearken unto the commandments of Yah thy Elohim, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them, and thou shalt not go aside from the words which I command thee this day, to the right or to the left, to go after other gods to serve. These are the promises that Yah, the Most High Yah, made to us as a nation, as a people, and not just, I mean from the beginning all the way till now. We still have an opportunity to come back in line, to come back in order, and be blessed of Yah, even in this land of captivity. He wants us to separate ourselves from the system of things, from the traditions of these nations, what we've been raised in. And it's going to be hard, but you have to, and your family's going to kick against you. You're going to lose family members, you're going to lose friends, but you're doing it to be obedient. And the word, and the Mashiach, he says that the members of your own household are going to become your enemies, specifically because you are coming back into land in line with the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah. This is what he was talking about. Okay. Now I know that all mankind has been taught that the law is done away with. And what is so funny is that the Messiah tells all of us, Israel and the Gentiles, that read his word that he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. And we can find this in Matthew 5, verses 17 to 20. And I'm going to read that. And Matthew 5, verse 17. This is the Mashiach speaking. Think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle in no wise pass from the law, till it all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach, did you hear that? And shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever do and teach them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. How many of our preachers, our pastors, our teachers, our ministers, have, and it doesn't matter what denomination you're in the Christendom, I'm speaking specifically of Christendom, okay? The Catholic Church and all its descendants, Baptist, Protestant, Methodist, Episcopalian, all the spinoffs, have taught us that the law is done away with. It's done away with. We don't have to keep the law. That's not what it says here. Anyway, let me keep going. And verse 20. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. The scribes and the Pharisees, the leadership, I guess you could say the religious leadership of Israel. Okay? So, but as a nation, we run with that lie. As a result, there are specific curses that were laid out in Scripture that would come upon us as a nation, as a people, as individuals, if we did not keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. but we refuse. We go to church, and we have in my own churches. I sat in Baptist, non-denominational churches for years, but I haven't been in those churches for a very long time. I mean, almost 2 decades. I just did a lot of studying on my own, and had very small fellowship with other people that just come up out of the church, come up out of Christendom, and we just would have Bible studies online, on the phone. I would just do my own study and stuff, and every once in a while I would go back into a church, and sit for 6 months. The longest I could stay is really probably 6 months, and then I couldn't do it because I craved the fellowship. I craved the fellowship. But when you start being obedient, going in, when you go back into those churches, those denominations, whichever denomination, you're actually going back into the system. Okay, you're going back into the system, and that system is the religious system that's set up around the world. It is not of Yah. It's not of the Most High Yah. He teaches us how to live, and it has nothing to do with religion or a denomination. It's a way of life. It's like a culture, a heritage is what it is. So let me continue on. But we run with the customs and the culture and the traditions of the land that we happen to be dispersed in, and we just go along to get along, and we don't get along because they just murder us at a drop of a dime. So I'm gonna end this video here, and then I'm gonna start up, and we're gonna start off with the curses. Well, actually, we're going to start off with Jeremiah and Deuteronomy after this break.